The Rotwood Chronicles by Carol. Read by Allie. Part 1. Cotton Bottom in the Rot.
Episode 1. The Bloom Festival.
In the oldest part of the Rotwood Forest, nestled beneath ferns taller than towers, lived a kingdom so small that a human boot could have crushed it without ever knowing it was there. Its name was Gordlebell. Gordlebell stretched from the roots of the mighty elder oak to the silver banks of the Meadow Creek. Its streets paved with smooth seeds, its houses built from hollow acorns, curling bark, and overturned teacups abandoned long ago by careless picnickers. Each evening, glowworms carefully lit the lanterns that lined the seed streets, while moths stitched clothes from flower petals. Each morning, bumblebees baked honey buns in the massive clay ovens, and the royal post was delivered by snails who were never hurried and never apologetic about it. Of all Gordlebell's creatures, none were quite as unusual as Cotton Bottom. Cotton Bottom was a doodle bug, round as a berry and covered from ferrules to feet in pale pink floof that resembles cotton candy. When Cotton Bottom becomes nervous, the fluff frizzled, and when he became excited, his poof puffed outwards until it could barely fit through a doorway. And Cotton Bottom was nearly always nervous or excited. On the morning of the Bloom Festival, he was both. Late, catastrophically late! Cotton Bottom rolled down Honeysuckle Hill with a bundle of ribbons clutched against his belly. Doodlebugs were excellent rollers. Unfortunately, they were not excellent at stopping. "Make way!" Cotton Bottom cried out. An acorn mouse leaped aside. A family of beetles dropped their breakfast as Cotton Bottom rolled past. A snail had several minutes to move, but chose not to. Cotton Bottom bounced over a pebble, sailing through the curtains of ivy and landing upside down in a basket of sugared violets. Fly, the bee baker, stared down at him. "Morning, Cotton," Fly sighed. "Lovely weather we're having today," Cotton Bottom said, waving his legs helplessly in the air. "You owe me 12 sugared violets." Fly was the greatest baker in all of Gordlebell. Cotton Bottom had spent years working up the courage to ask him how a bumblebee came to be named Fly. Cotton could feel his poof begin to frizzle and realized it was still not a good time to ask. "Put them on my account." "You don't have an account." "Then today's the day of exciting beginnings, Fly." The baker pulled Cotton Bottom from the basket by one foot. As he dangled in midair, he could see hordes of creatures walking the streets through the baker's window. Gordlebell's village square was already crowded. Garlands of bluebells hung between the mushroom towers. Beetle musicians tuned their instruments made from walnut shells and cricket strings. Children chased floating bubbles filled with firefly light. At the center of the square stood the blooming bell, a white foxglove taller than any home in the kingdom. Once a year, on the first morning of summer, the foxglove opened its final bloom. When the bell-shaped flower rang, every plant in Gordlebell bloomed at once. It was the kingdom's happiest day. Cotton Bottom hurried to the festival's archway, where his best friend was waiting with all four arms crossed. Thimble was a moth with copper wings and a talent for looking disappointed. "Those ribbons were supposed to be here before sunrise," she said. "They were," he said as Thimble glanced at the sun, which was already well above the trees. "In a spiritual sense," Cotton Bottom added. Together they tied the ribbons along the arch. Cotton Bottom became tangled twice and had to be cut free once, but just as the royal horn sounded, the final bow was secured. The creatures of Gordlebell began to gather around the blooming bell. Queen Morella appeared on the palace balcony. She was a Luna moth, elegant and pale, with long green wings that trailed behind her like a silken cloak. A crown of woven silver grass rested between her feathered antennae. Beside her stood Sir Grumblethorn, captain of the royal guard. He was a stag beetle with a cracked horn and a permanent scowl. "My dear citizens," Queen Morelle spoke, "another summer has found Gordlebell safe, prosperous, and full of light." The crowd cheered. Cotton Bottom cheered louder than anyone else. Queen Morella raised one delicate hand, signaling for Elder Bordock to step forward and ring the blooming bell. He was the oldest moss rabbit in the kingdom, with soft brown fur, drooping ears, and spectacles carved from cherry wood. Elder Burdock had rung the bell for 72 summers. He reached for the flowers and let out a small cough. Most other creatures didn't hear it. Cotton Bottom did. Elder Burdock touched his mouth with one paw and stared down at it. Something green clung to his fur. He quickly wiped it away against his robe. The bell began to chime. The foxglove swayed in the windless sky. Its white blossom released a single note that rang through every root, burrow, and branch of Gordabelle. All around the square, flowers burst open. Pink clovers, golden buttercups, purple thistle, the air filled with petals and cheers. The music began, and for one beautiful moment, Cotton Bottom forgot about that strange green powder on Elder Burdock's paw. Tables overflowed with the seed cakes, berry pies, and cups of chilled nectar. Moths danced with beetles, field mice wore crowns of daisies, and Cotton Bottom entered a jam-eating contest and was disqualified for falling into the bowl. It was proving to be as grand a bloom festival as ever, though Queen Morelle's garden throne sat empty as she remained in the castle. Cotton Bottom couldn't think of a single bloom festival where Queen Morella wasn't present. Then Elder Burdock coughed again, loudly. Loud enough that, this time, everyone heard it. The music stopped. The old rabbit bent forward, his whole body trembling. A cloud escaped his mouth. Not breath. Spores.